Hello, everybody. Just to kind of touch base before we start the video, I didn't get a chance to film a intro live, so I'm kind of adding it in here post conversation. So going forward, I will kind of do an intro, before we start. But this video does kind of just drop us right in, so just so you're aware. But yeah, I hope that you enjoy it. It is rather long. And I do plan on kind of cutting it up a little bit and doing some other videos with it. But I think it is very important to hear the entire conversation as well as the readings. So just to kind of let you know a little bit of the structure, we read through the first 5 chapters of Genesis, talk about it a little bit, read through the next 5 chapters, so verses 6 through 10, and then we talk about that as well. And then, we kind of go on for a little while and make some really groundbreaking, um, eye-opening discoveries. And some of them you may know, some of them you may not have. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
I could only imagine, because like when you're reading this, it makes me feel sad. The fact that there was a point in time where my existence, I mean, it probably in my lifetime, there was a point in time where I did something, God's just like, bruh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, for real. I think I mean it even says, but it says in the earlier verses, I believe, that there was evil. Every inclination of the thoughts of their heart was only evil all the time. I mean, bro, those had to be some evil sons of guns, man, especially to make God feel that way.
And
And
that's crazy that they all the time to think of evil all the time. Like I think, don't get me wrong, I got my temptations that I'm struggling with, but all day, every day, like I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
there's I feel like I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know,
hard
but
to
I feel
imagine
like for
any
me
group of
that's
people being worse than us. To be honest.
Right, right.
I
Yeah.
suck pretty bad. I'm gonna be honest with you. But to never think of God or anything good at all,
Right.
ever, that's a scary
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, that is. I think that's why it moved, Adonai to feel that way, and he was deeply hurt. You know, um,
And it's funny
it,
because I think it also shows once again mercy. Because like as we continue to go through Genesis, we'll see multiple times, just like where he exercised one of the times right now, where he could have been. He literally could have just started over. Didn't have to give Noah a chance. Like he didn't have to give Adam a chance again.
Right.
mhm,
I mean, don't get me
right.
wrong. Like he killed everything, but it's also within his right as our creator, as our
Oh
father,
yeah,
All that, and it was
and
just too. It was
yeah,
fully just.
and it wasn't unpredicated.
Right.
Like we
Yeah, it
were
wasn't like
evil,
we were all sitting down here singing "Kumbaya," you know,
and so
hanging out with each other, and God was like, "You know what, dog? I feel like I want to start over."
and it's
yeah.
crazy because this is even before Jesus, and yet he's extremely merciful.
Yeah,
Right, right, right.
yeah,
And even
far
he had
more
his own
merciful
kind,
than what most of us would be.
and all
Probably,
on top of all of this. Oh, most definitely
yeah.
more merciful than
Well,
us. But
I said
uh,
probably, but I don't know why. But the first thing I thought of
I
was
was
like
just
my teacher telling me that I had a teacher who's like, you said more merciful than us, and I don't know why I said probably, but that's probably because I thought of my teacher. He one day during class he told us he's like, if I was president, I'd kill every inmate or like criminal in the penitentiaries,
Jeez,
and that
Louise.
just
oh
kind of
man,
like that scared me because like I think my dad's a great man, but he's a convicted felon, right?
Right.
He's made
right.
his mistakes in life, and he's paid the society's what society deems to be worthy of the crime.
Hmm.
Um, I've definitely lied, cheated, stolen before,
Well, yeah. Who among us hasn't sinned, right?
and so it
Yeah.
just it just scared me because like I feel like I could. There's no way I could like as much as I hate the fact that people do the nasty things that we do to each other. There's no way I feel like I just like off them all.
Right.
I can understand the rapists and the murderers. Like I don't agree, but I can understand that. But everyone,
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I think
I
it's
think
important to
that
remember that, like, even like the distinction there, right? Is uh, like there's even the most evil people on our planet that you can think of have good in them, whereas these people that
apparently they had none.
Free Flood had zero. So it's like, think of the worst
right,
person that you can imagine, right? For a lot of people, it's probably going to be like Hitler, Stalin, something like that, like some evil,
yeah,
atrocious person. There's still good in those people, however
oh
little,
yeah,
Yeah.
right? However little that may be, there's still more good in them
It,
than that of
it's funny you said that because I've
Free
had
Flood.
people ask me. They're like, you think Hitler could be in heaven?" I was like, "Probably. He
Yeah,
could.
he could be, sure.
If the
If he
guy
has that
literally
right.
was, because I think when God judges us, like it says in Revelations, He judges our heart,
Right.
and I don't think God limits our ability to go to Him in any time frame, but within our living in or on Earth. So if at the very last 10 seconds or 1 second of my life, God could tell that if I was to be able to live again, I would be different,
Right.
or as much as I could be different. I think that's enough for God to look at me and see that. And so
Right.
if and I think that could be for anyone, anywhere,
Oh
anytime.
yeah. I mean, we don't know. To use the example, right? We don't know what happened prior to. We don't
Because
know Hitler,
he could
right?
have
He
regretted,
was
yeah,
in
he
that
could have
bunker.
regretted
He
that
could have
right when he
regretted
died.
everything that he did, asked for forgiveness, and then killed himself.
yeah. And one thing too, I wanted to point out just a little bit earlier, just to kind of also uh, just the more treachery that was going on, is that the sons of God, right, are the ones that came down and created the Nephilim. So it's actually, I'm not sure if was it the fallen angels already, or was it the angels that were in heaven looked down upon them and saw that uh, they were beautiful, and so they came down and made bodies for themselves, right, and bred with these women. And so you even had, there's just so much treachery going on at this moment. You know what I mean? Like even the angels were betraying God and given into this evil inclinations. And he had all of that going on. I mean, people that literally are with God.
I guess
You
yeah,
know?
that makes sense because it makes the distinction between the sons of God and daughters of men. So I'm assuming that if it was, it would also be the daughters of God and sons of men to differentiate. So I think that makes sense to that why it makes the different clean because I think it says the same thing in the CSB. Let me switch over
Oh,
here.
and that's for sure the story, like the Nephilim, because they came down. They taught them dark arts. They taught them how to
Magic,
use
blacksmithing.
magic,
Well,
blacksmithing.
it said it's funny you say that because I believe didn't it say that Canaan was the father? Hold on. Canaan was the father of like bronze working somewhere, maybe. I feel like
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
it might be the
Um,
genealogy. Hold on, let me check the genealogy somewhere.
It definitely
But
was. It was something. I remember seeing that because I remember hearing the bronze.
and that's the first thing that popped in my head. It was the bronze and copper working was like because I've heard that like and it might just be the fact because I've heard that weapon making was an art taught to us by the fallen.
Mhm.
Sorcery. I've heard that. I haven't read it anywhere, but I mean, I feel like a lot of things are rooted in some form of truth, no matter how obscure they may be. Let me see if I
Right.
can find this right here. Control F. Find it. Sons. Yeah. Let me go back to 5. Uh, 5. Canaan. Canaan's not in here. It has to be chapter 6, 7. Orange car, Noah, the flood. I know we read it because I heard it. I heard it. Yeah, I
hmm
hear it again in my head. Just want to find it.
Hmm.
Let me just try.
Okay, it's okay, it's chapter 4, verse 19, all the way down to 22. It says 21. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the pioneer of all who skillfully handled string instruments and wind instruments. Verse 22 says, now Zillah also gave birth to Tubal-Cain, the forger of every kind of bronze and iron tools.
Okay, so yeah, so that's
Tubal-Cain's
what.
sister was Naamah. That's tools, though. I think
Yeah,
the
weaponry. I think most of us would consider weaponry and tools separate. So
yeah.
yeah,
For sure, because I mean they created tools. I mean, even says
to
turn
do the
your
work.
swords. What's the scriptures? You will beat your swords into plowshares and or your swords into pruning shears. Like
Yeah, you turn
in
it into a
Revelations,
sword.
I believe it talks about even turning your weapons back into tools, right?
Yeah.
And
So okay, yeah. I thought I knew I saw it. I remember seeing bronze somewhere.
yeah, that's what it was.
And definitely, yeah. So I mean, it makes sense because we learn all this stuff apparently after or once the creation of the Nephilim. It's a scary because it makes me. It's scary because let me go back to the Nephilim text because it says the Nephilim were on these days were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. Wherever the sons of God came to, whenever the sons of God came to the daughters of men and gave birth to them, they were those were the mighty men of old, men of renown. So it's like I think the way I can like equate that would be like in Norse mythology, where like uh, what Zeus would come down, mate with a human female, make a demigod, and just like bolt out of there. And because like wasn't I feel like somewhere someone suggested I've heard the concept of Goliath was a Nephilim, and that's why him and his brothers were so big.
Yeah, there's a lot of like.
And so
Enoch talks about that.
So it's interesting to hear about that. It tells that a lot of men, a lot of mighty, renowned, or famous people, however you may phrase it, from long ago, or it might even be still today, um, are sons of what God would consider an abomination. Because I believe that's what it said in the text before was that the mating between angels and humans resulted in an abomination that we know as the Nephilim. And I mean, I just think that's an interesting um, thing that it points out. I mean, it holds some form of importance because I don't think there's just things that are just wasted upon in the Bible. Um, and I think it also helps us root the understanding, like you said, as well as hearing the fact that apparently almost all of humankind had only evil in their heart at that time. Just, I mean, irks God's wheel when he
Not
sees
even
all
almost,
this.
literally everybody but
But
Noah,
Noah,
his
yeah.
family. Yeah. So like
Yeah,
everybody
because
but like 5 people.
Enoch has already been taken to heaven at this point.
Yeah. Enoch was
Right.
taken 300 years after he was born.
Yeah.
And then I think it's another like 400 years before Noah. Or this stuff that happens with Noah, because he's 600, I think, when this happens.
Yeah, 600 and then 601 when they land.
Yeah, and
I
it was
really,
interesting too because he also had to deal with Cain, right? Cain's lineage, because it says in the end of chapter 4, which was kind of the stepping stones of Cain and Abel being born, all the way to the end of it. It says in chapter 25 when it says Adam was intimate with his wife again, she gave birth to a son. She named him Seth, for God has appointed me another seed in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. But it says in 26, to Seth also was born a son. He named him Enosh. Then people began to call on Adonai's name. So I wonder if it was like through all of that I don't know, but part of that makes me believe that there was definitely they were distancing themselves from him, right? Obviously. I mean, Cain was a wanderer. He said he removed himself from the presence of the Lord, right?
And they probably fell away. It wouldn't surprise me if Cain's lineage is probably what ended up populating a lot of the world before the flood
Oh yeah.
as well.
I also think it's
Well, yeah, because it doesn't say that Enoch had any children.
No, it says
right?
Enoch
Right.
had one child. All right. Well, it names one child and it says fathered other sons and daughters. But um, but I think it's like at this point though, like we're probably getting into the point once you get down Enoch, methyl. I can't the meth guy.
or Methuselah.
Yeah.
Methuselah.
No,
Yeah.
right after Enoch's son, and then Lamech. It wouldn't surprise me once we get started getting down to Noah's time that they're also intertwining Seth's lineage with Cain's
Right.
as well. And
Oh
so
yeah.
Cain's already away from God. And even though Enoch loved, because Enoch loved God so much that apparently God, he didn't die, for God just took him straight up to heaven. But then his lineage is mixing with Cain's, and then Cain's probably has disdain for God, given for his punishment, um, from his actions with his brother, and so it wouldn't surprise me because like a lot of children are products of their parents,
Right.
and so it wouldn't surprise me if he's also taught his children to be away from God,
Right.
and I think you can see what I'm trying to, because I keep stuttering.
Oh, you're fine.
um, the mixing between the two different families and obviously the one probably, I mean there's no proof, but probably having a disdain for God probably helps spin the toilet bowl straight down the drain when it comes to there being a point where there's everyone but what 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 people on the planet having some good in their hearts,
Right.
which once again is a terrifying aspect because it feels like that's probably where our world is heading right now. Well, I mean, it is where our world is heading if Revelation is any true, which we believe it to be.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it
No, I
feels like
agree.
it's definitely trending that way.
I do have a question. I do have a question. What you guys think about this in chapter? This is kind of going back, but it just kind of is all kind of tying together for me. But in chapter 4, after Cain receives his punishment from Adonai, it says in verse 16, it says, "Then Cain left Adonai's presence and dwelled in the land of wandering east of Eden."
mm-hmm.
It's almost like there was it was a specific land of wondering. I don't know how exactly is it. Was there a land that he was just banished to,
It could
and
be,
and also, I'm sorry, and also, is that a signification of Cain left God? God didn't leave Cain. Um, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
well,
his
it
Cain
says
left.
because it says it in 13 as well. Most high for your presence and becoming so. I mean, it might be because I don't know. We don't necessarily know, but he might have been like too ashamed to be around God, and then that could have
Yeah,
festered into hatred. Or maybe he never ended up hating God and just accepted his punishment. It was like I must be away from you for right now, for I'm not any good. But like in the CSB, it has the land of Nod, whatever that means. Let me see. It has a little footnote. So let me see. F. Yeah, it says wandering. So I guess it translates to wandering. Um, it could have just been at the time empty by wandering, because like I would assume that if there was cities and stuff already established from the other families and whatnot, people wouldn't be wandering, right? They'd be around and there. But if he goes to start off by himself, I mean, it would make sense it's the land of wandering because it's nothing but untamed forest or savanna or wherever he's at. So untamed land. So he would then be doomed at that time for their
Sorry,
to be
guys.
wandering.
Yeah, it says the word
You're good.
nod in Hebrew means wanderer, exile, or fugitive.
Yeah, so he could have been banished. I mean, I don't see where it says
It could be called the land of the wanderer.
let's go out of the field and killed him. Where is your brother? So it doesn't say that like it doesn't say that God like pushed him away or anything. He says, "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. So you're cursed, alienated from the ground that opens its mouth to receive your brother's blood that you've shed. And then the punishment, if you work the ground, it will never again give you its yield. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." So, I mean, with the restless wanderer, maybe that was at the time God saying you're banished, but nothing, as far as I understand, to be clear cut. Besides Cain being like, "I can't be in your presence. I must hide from you."
Yeah, this one has an
Yeah.
interesting perspective. What I'm reading, so it says, though God had driven Cain from his home, it was Cain's choice to live outside the presence of God. Essentially,
Mm.
Cain's punishment in becoming a wanderer and a fugitive was to lose all sense of belonging and identification with the community. Living in the land of Nod, Cain lived without roots in isolation. For his sin, Cain was made a castaway and later became a godless, hollow person in the land of Nod. Upon separating himself from God, Cain built a society totally detached from God. The Bible tells us children of Cain followed in his path and established a godless civilization.
That would then make sense if if then once you get to Noah, they're also mingling with the rest of the world, and
Well,
soon.
did Cain give birth to Canaan, right?
No, Cain was impotent with
Was
his wife. He gave birth to Enoch.
Yeah.
Then Cain. What's interesting? So I wonder if there was two Enochs or what. I don't know, because like when you look at the genealogy, as far as I understand, it goes down Seth's genealogy. But apparently, it says 17, chapter 4. It says Cain was intimate with his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. Then Cain became a builder of a city, and he named it Enoch after his son. Adred was born to Enoch, father of Methuselah,
Mhm.
which is interesting because these are all the names in the Methuselah father Lamech. So, I mean, that's interesting because right here in chapter 4 it tells us. Let me copy this page
Which
so I can
chapter
have
are
it.
you in? You're in chapter 5?
Chapter 4, Genesis
Oh,
4.
4.
Let me duplicate. Let me go back to the genealogy.
Because the genealogy kind of starts in
It goes.
5
Yeah,
a little bit.
because it says that Cain gave birth to Enoch. Enoch had Idrid. Idrid had Mehujael. Mehujael had Meth. Meth had Lamech. And that is the last part of the genealogy for chapter 5, right? So Lamech, then Methuselah, Meth, Enoch. It just doesn't talk about
Methuselah.
Mehujael. I'm just going to call him Jael. So Jael. It doesn't talk about Jael. Jael's not in there. But it's interesting because over here it starts with Seth. Seth gave Enosh. Enosh went to Canaan. Canaan to Mahalalel. Then to Jared. Then to Enoch. So, I don't know.
Yes.
Because
I
it says the line of
wonder.
Seth.
Yeah, are you talking about when it goes into chapter 5 when it starts
Yeah,
talking about the
chapter
lineage? But it
5. Yeah,
doesn't.
chapter 5 goes from Adam to Lamech is apparently, from what I understand, is supposed to be Seth's lineage. But the last, what, 1, 2, 3 people in Seth's lineage are the names for what it says to be Cain's lineage in chapter 7. And it goes from Enoch to Idrid. So it doesn't have Idrid in there, but it has Mehujael, Methman, and Lamech. So unless, I mean, it would, they might have just used the same names. That definitely a possibility, but it's definitely a correlation. They're using the same names there.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, there could have been two different Enochs because it says that Jared lived 160 years, then fathered Enoch. Jared lived 800 years after he fathered Enoch. And then it says Enoch fathered Methuselah, which that
Which
lines
is
up.
back. Yeah.
That lines up because it says that an Enoch was born Arad. Oh, then it says Arad fathered
Mehujael,
Mehujael
and
and
then
Methuselah.
Meth Man.
It could have been
So,
breaking it down. It could have been breaking it down into separate parts or important parts.
well,
Maybe I don't know.
well, I know the big thing is this is Cain's, right? It starts with Cain. The one in chapter 5 starts with Seth. So I don't know.
Well, it does
Like,
say
and
in the bottom half of it does say Adam was intimate with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son. She named him Seth, for God has appointed me another seed in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. To Seth also was born a son. He named him
Enoch.
Enosh. Then people began to call Adam. I was like, maybe that's why it's replaced. It's like replacing Seth
It could be.
instead of Cain. I wonder.
Mm, maybe, but that doesn't sound. It
I don't
doesn't
think that's
sound
the
right.
case.
Yeah, maybe
It,
not.
it might just be
I think the
names,
simplest answer is probably the correct answer, to be honest here. I mean,
which is
there's a
just
time
names.
difference at any rate, right? Between
Because this
the
is not going
first
to be the
Enoch
first
and the
time where we
second
see.
Enoch.
Yeah, because this is not going to be the first time we see where they have, like, you have multiple names for people that sounds like these are individual people, like each one. Because I know, like, there's one where.
I'd find it also
Where?
interesting, side note, that
Hmm.
it doesn't give any of the lifespans of any of the people in Cain's lineage,
Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yes.
but it does for every other lineage.
Hmm. Uh, I don't know why, but the first thought that came to me was that I guess it wasn't important for Cain's lineage to discern a time difference between things, between Noah and Adam, maybe. That's just what
Maybe.
popped in my head.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah.
Hmm. But,
Hmm.
I had something. What was I gonna say? I don't know. Oh, well, there's an instance in the Bible where it talks about the reigning, like the dynasty of some people reigning over Jerusalem, and it goes over this guy twice. But I'm pretty sure it talks about the family dynasty and then the individual name of the guy who shared the name with the family. So it could be just similar names, because which makes sense to me, because I mean they are brothers, so I'm assuming that even though they were godless, I mean if Seth was a good brother, or I don't know, they could have.
What about, so I'm reading
Hmm.
the subnotes again, and it says, so Cain's murder, so it's talking about, 4:17 through 24. This is Cain's murderous ways infect his family line. By the time we get to his great great grandson, we find a man bragging about his own violence. And it quotes, "I killed a man for wounding me." Lamech boasts in chapter 4, verse 23. Notice, too, that Lamech is talking to his wives. God's perfect design is only 4 chapters old, and already we find people reveling in bloodshed and ignoring his design for marriage. Then it goes on to say, chapters 4, verses 25 through 532. In place of Abel, God gives or granted Eve a son named Seth. In connection with Seth, people began to call on the Lord. Hundreds of years later, Noah would come from this line of Seth. So it's almost, I wonder if it's for lack of a better term, like a yin and yang, right? So it's
It
like the
could be
duality of man,
opposite.
so to speak, right? You have the
It's
line
funny you
of
say that.
Cain, and you have like these murderous, wrathful, vengeful people, and then you have the line of Seth that obviously leads to Noah, and they're both coexisting in this one environment, and maybe that's brought to light by the two Enochs, right? So you have an Enoch that's presumably evil, and you have an
Yeah,
Enoch
one who
that comes from a line that's good and loves God so much, and God loves him so much that he takes him to heaven outright.
yeah. It definitely could. My dad always said, it's funny you said, because my dad's always said God is all about balance.
Yeah.
And so, but
When you said that, it made
this
me think of the Shift movie for some reason, Matt. When you said that, I don't know. Like, wait, what if there's two different Enochs?
Well,
but
yeah,
it
there's
probably is
definitely
because
from
Enoch
the reading.
Enoch
There's
just
definitely two.
Enoch in Hebrew means the one to be trained up. So I mean, and like even in today's society, like people pick names for meanings and people pick names for symbolism. So it's I mean, I guess it's not really surprising for them to be now that I think like I probably was just overthinking it, trying to find some hidden meaning in the fact that they probably just named their firstborn, or well, I guess not firstborn for Seth, because after Seth was Enosh, but Cain was Enoch, which is probably the difference. Because when you look at the lineage side by side, starting with Cain and Seth, the names don't add up. Like to be equal, Cain, Enoch, Seth, Enosh, then Enosh to something, and then Enoch to Idrid, but Enosh to Kenan. So it doesn't. I'm not gonna go with they probably had just similar names because they seem to not correlate besides the names.
Well, I'm not saying that's
And
not what I was
it makes
saying.
sense for what. Yeah, no, I was just that was just my
Yeah, it just
thought
feels
I was
like it's
sharing.
like there's no is so the reason I think that there's the Bible is intentionally written exactly as it is, and there's not really
Agreed.
very many, if any, examples that I can think of two other names in the Bible that match, right? Like through all the lineages, I can't think of very many, if any, lineages that match the same name.
I'm pretty sure. Well, I don't think lineages, but I'm pretty sure wasn't. Hold on, let me think. Let me see. Just think. Wasn't there two Peters? That one had a different name because of the name Jesus gave him.
He gave him the name, yeah, but his name wasn't Peter. It was like I don't remember what his technical name is, but
Yeah, I don't either.
It's kind of weird because
The Rock.
when it says Cain was intimate with his wife, yada yada yada, he to Enoch was born Irad, right?
Irad.
Oh, I see. Never mind. Yeah, this does make a little bit more sense actually. Hold on.
Yeah, I had to pull him up. I had to put him like side by side on my screen to read it. And
yeah, I don't know.
at first, I was like,
maybe
"Oh, this
I'm
lines
looking
up."
too much into it, but it almost just feels
No,
like
I
it's
mean,
like a yin and yang sort of thing.
You know what's
it
really
could be
interesting?
both.
You know what's
Could be
really
both.
interesting is if you start to look into the names in chapter 5, some of them mean like glory of God. They mean different things, right? But whereas Cain's son Irad, the biblical baby names, the meaning of the name Irad is wild ass, heap of empire dragon. Also suggests the meaning of runner or fugitive. Which, I mean, doesn't that
A
kind of
lot of
make
these names
sense?
correspond to that.
Right? Doesn't that kind of
That's
make sense though?
crazy.
With
Yeah, because that is Cain, child or grandchild technically.
when that Irad was his child.
Irad's
'Cause
grandchild because Cain, Enoch,
oh,
Irad.
Enoch was
What's
born
the
Irad.
What's the you looked up? What's the Hebrew definition for the name?
I looked up meaning of the name and then I put in whatever name and then I looked at the Hebrew.
Okay, do me a favor. Do that same thing with Jared.
Spell that for me.
Jared.
Ed.
Every kiss begins with K.
Because I might be
Origin
forgetting.
is Hebrew. Jared is a boy's name of Hebrew origins, meaning he descends.
He descends. And what was Irad? It was dragon, right? Ascends.
Dragon, runner, fugitive. Yeah. It was ass. I think was the term for it.
So hear me out, right?
Yeah.
So I want to just read something here. So let's see here. So you have obviously Enoch and Enoch, right? But you also have there's a lot of correlation between these names. So Irad and Jared are both similar, right? Like obviously there's a little bit different spelling, but they sound very similar. And I mean, on the face level, I don't think that like they sound extremely similar. But the reason I pointed out is if you look at so for Cain we have Mehuhajel, right? And then you also for Seth you have Mahalalel. So those sound similar as well, but they sound juxtaposed to each other, right? But okay, so well, there's a couple of different examples. Okay, well then what about Methushalel or Methushael, or however the hell you pronounce it, and then you have Methuselah. You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
you see what I'm saying? Doesn't that seem like they're the same, but the opposite?
Let me look.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Oh. It's kind of like the yin and yang.
Yeah, isn't that what it feels like?
That is kind of what it feels like. For me, the interesting part is,
and they even Lamech.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that one up next.
Meth Man. I was so unable to pronounce the name that I was just reading meth. I didn't even notice the ending.
Yeah,
Methuselah
and Methuselah. So I would be curious you're doing those ones. I want to look at these.
So apparently, from what this one website says, Methusael is man of God, extension of God, man who is of God, yawning gulf of death. Oh, extremity of death. That went deep.
Okay, here's another thing too. When you look up the meaning of Enoch,
right?
Because over here it says in verse 17, chapter 4, it says that Cain was intimate with his wife, became pregnant, gave birth to Enoch, right?
Yeah.
And he was building a city. Now, to the meaning of it is dedicated, trained, discipline, right? But it also says later in, this is the origin, it says the unique name was also borne by a leading figure in Torah and Hebrew Bible. Enoch was the son of Jared, the father of Methuselah, and the great-grandfather of Noah, which all lines up with chapter 5.
Yeah.
It doesn't mention that he was the son of Cain, as we see in chapter 4, verse 17.
Wait, say it again, sorry.
So, it says that obviously his name is dedicated, trained, discipline. That's Enoch, right? But it says here that Enoch was the son of Jared, the father of Methuselah, and the great-grandfather of Noah. It doesn't say that Enoch was the son of Cain. It's not even referring to that. It's referring as they're separate people. So there's two different Enochs.
Yeah,
here.
right. That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
But they all.
Oh no, I'm reaffirming your point. Yeah.
Right, but like the correlation between those, it feels too similar to me to be coincidence. Like I would say even. How do I? Okay, I want to.
Okay, which ones are you looking up, Matt?
Hold on.
Because there's Methuselah and there's Methuselah.
I have
Methuselah.
I have I have. Oh, I can't pronounce names.
I'm looking at Methuselah.
I have Methuselah on my. It says in. Or this is Wikipedia. Let me find something besides.
Methuselah is another good one. It's the one who was sent.
From the Bible, many mispronounced. Stay tuned to learn more.
It's funny you say that. Well, Wiki says his death shall send, or man of the javelin, which makes sense because you send javelins, and then death of sword.
Well, keep in mind, Metu is derived from the word Mot, meaning death, right?
So they both have
which is Hebrew.
Oh no, Methuselah.
No,
Methusael and
Met,
Methuselah.
Metu, right?
Metushael.
Metu,
Me-
Metushael.
Yeah, exactly.
Metushiel,
And then
Metushiel, and
Metushalah.
Yeah, they're definitely different. It's so funny because if
They're
if we
different,
would
but
have got on this, I
they're
wouldn't have even.
so they're similar enough that they seem juxtaposed.
So Methuselah was that, and then Meth.
so this one
Methuselah.
thing says that Metushalah is combination of Metu and Shalah. Strong's dictionary states that this name means man of the dart, which makes sense. Like you said, man, the one who sends or something, right? So according to Strong, the root for Metu is the word mat, which means man. And the word for Shalach means a weapon or missile, hence the translation to dart.
That's for Metushael.
Yeah, the Shalah, Metushalah.
See, because I
But
got.
how
Are you
are
talking
you
about?
spelling that? Because it's Selah.
It's Selah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm looking up this. I'm still on the ones with Cain's lineage, and in chapter or verse 18 in chapter 4 says Methushel, Shiel.
Yeah, Metushael.
That one means who demands his death. That's what the Hebrew biblical name is. So far, everything on Cain's side is
Not great.
no good.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
so from what he's saying, that it's not great for what you call it either. To be honest, unless I'm misunderstanding it, but it's not. None of the names are fantastic. Let me hold on.
Yeah, because here's one. Now this is
Yeah,
that's interesting. Now Irad fathered Mehuhel, right? Which is in also verse 18. Mehuhel
Mehuhel apparently
means
means smitten or to destroy. Smitten by God or destroyed by God.
yeah. There's different. Yes, that's the destroyed of God, smitten of God. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. There we go.
That's crazy. And then the Methushael. Yeah, that's the one I was reading earlier. I was like, oh, that sounds good. Man of God, extension of God, the man who is of God. And then the very next definition for it goes yawning gulf of death, the extremity of death.
Yeah. Make sure you're looking at the Hebrew
Let me see
because
if I can find a Hebrew breakdown.
there's a Hebrew lamek, which is the striker down, the wild man, or a strong youth.
Yeah, let me see this one.
Now,
Hebrew
because even
Strong.
says here are two persons named Lamech in the Bible, but Lamech biblically it says that it's also means poor, made low.
Yeah, so it seems like a lot of the names, like they were close together, like, and it sounds like Mehuel, and Lamech. Seems like they're like you were saying, the yin and yang. So like the name has a positive meaning and a negative meaning depending on how it was used in their language.
I also wonder if Lamech also having somewhat of a negative name. At that point, he fathered Noah, right? Lamech.
Yeah, Lamech was the father of Noah
So
on Seth's side.
it almost makes sense that things started to dwindle and morality started to disappear, and maybe that's why Lamech at that point was called that.
I found an
Could
interesting
be.
website that has all of them. So Enoch, obviously, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah,
Means
the one to
teaching or
train up.
commencement. But so for Methuselah, which would be Seth's line, as an interesting reason for it. So it says the flood of Noah did not come as a surprise. It had been preached on for 4 generations, but something strange happened when Enoch was 65, from which time he walked with God. Enoch was given a prophecy that as long as his son was alive, the judgment of the flood would be withheld, but as soon as he died, the flood would be sent forth. Enoch named his son to reflect this prophecy. The name Methuselah comes from 2 roots. Muth, a root that means death, and from Salah, which means to bring or to set forth. Thus, the Methuselah signifies his death shall bring. And indeed, the year that Methuselah died, the flood came. And it goes on, but so
Interesting. That's kind of
that's according to
Oh,
this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense with the
So-
numbers we're given here, because
Okay.
Methuselah lived 187 years and fathered Lamech, right? And this
Well, We'll
was
grab a calculator real quick.
So it
he
says,
was
okay, so it says, and indeed in
187
the year Methuselah died, the flood came. Methuselah was 187 when he had Lamech and lived 782 more years. Lamech had Noah when he was 182. The flood came in Noah's 600th year. So 187 plus 182 plus 600 equals 969, which is Methuselah's age when he died.
Oh yeah, I see
when
that.
Noah was
Yeah.
600 years old when the flood came.
Yes.
Yeah, he was 600, and then he landed at 601 after the flood.
That makes sense when you add. I was about to say,
It
like,
says
if you
it is interesting
do the
that
numbers.
Methuselah's life was in effect a symbol of God's mercy in forestalling the coming judgment of the flood. It is therefore fitting that his lifetime is the oldest in the Bible, symbolizing the extreme extensiveness of God's mercy.
That's deep.
That's all. Yeah, because what I was reading says that as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, apparently Methuselah also has it has like what I was saying, the Mandart meaning, and then like you were saying their death sentence or his death sentence meaning as well.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you just love Hebrew? Hebrew, I like generally Hebrew is such an interesting language.
I would like to learn Hebrew and read like the Bible in its original translation. I think that would be really cool.
I wish I want to learn hopefully if I get a chance, I want to learn the Greek and Hebrew because I would like to read it as well. I would like to be able to read it in its original, or as far as we understand to be original written state.
Whoa. Yeah. Here's something interesting. I'm going to share my screen.
Ooh.
And this is kind of freaking wild. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, the other guy left. I didn't even know.
Yeah, he left a while.
Yeah, he left a long time ago.
You see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at this. So here's the Hebrew, right? And look at the correlation in English. Man appointed mortal, sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching his death shall bring, the despairing reset, arrest, or comfort. And that's the lineage.
Wow, I just got chills. That's crazy.
Like Seth's lineage from Adam.
Yeah,
Noah.
man appointed mortal. Man appointed mortal, sorrow. Blessed God shall come, teaching his death shall bring. I feel like that's talking about Jesus.
It makes so much sense though, because like even if you in chapter 5 verse 29 it said Lamech, I'm just gonna paraphrase, Lamech named Noah, right? And he said, "This one will comfort us from our work and from the pain of our hands, because the ground which Adonai cursed." So, I mean, Lamech being the despairing also really makes sense, and like
goes on to say it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you kind of tie these names in with kind of where they were at in the lineage and the genealogy, it kind of all makes sense. Like their names being that, it just makes me wonder: was that inspired by God? Because if you look at that, you can almost read that in a row, right? Like obviously we both
that's
all
what
did
it's saying
that.
Here, right? Here is the summary of God's plan of redemption, hidden here within a genealogy of Genesis. You will never convince me that a group of Jewish rabbis deliberately contrived to hide the Christian gospel right here in a genealogy within their venerated Torah. So they're saying this is God talking about the redemption plan for Jesus coming down.
Yeah, I'm about to say, because that sounds like
Adam
man
means
appointed
man.
mortal.
Hidden.
Man appointed mortal, the blessed
Adam
God.
means man, yes.
shall come down teaching, his death shall bring the despairing rest and comfort.
I guess we should look
that's
up
Jesus.
and see. We should look up and make sure these all mean that. In
Well,
English,
like,
right?
that's what. So,
Like Adam
I
and
was doing
man.
that while we were talking. So, Adam and man, Seth, I've seen that on here. Enosh, also talks about man. So man, mortal, and then Canaan. Depending on how you spell it, it could be possession wise, or the other way you spell it means to mourn, lament, or sorrow after.
Interesting. Okay.
And
So
then
that
Okay,
makes sense.
Okay, Seth is correct, but I just looked it up. It means Seth or place, Seth means appointed.
Okay.
So
Jared,
Seth is one.
Enosh was mortal. So we've established these three.
and then
Did we
Jared
I'll look
means
establish
he's.
mortal for Enosh?
I'm doing that
Yeah.
right now. I'm doing that right now.
And then, well, Jared is he descends, so shall come down.
And so you confirmed this one?
Okay,
Yeah.
wait. Hold on.
Or at least it's on another website. I mean, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, well,
It-
yeah, we can only do so much, right?
It says Enosh denotes man as frail and mortal.
Okay, well,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Mortal.
And we
'Cause,
know
like, 'cause
Enoch
that's what I
means
saw,
future.
Enosh.
Here's the more important part. Enos was, I believe, how it was actually in Hebrew, which means mortal man, even in Hebrew.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that one check. So these all check out up to
Mhm.
this point.
And then let me.
What
and
about
then Methuselah?
we established
Definitely
that.
Methuselah is his death shall bring, and then
Lamech
Lamech. Let me do
and
that.
then Noah.
Lamech.
It says Lamech is the strike. Okay, this is in Hebrew. The strike down, the wild man, or a strong youth, a source of great or sudden wealth or luck, a burden, a hindrance, impediment, poor made low.
I see the low. I found the one to be low definition. It's this one that I found says this is one of the names in the Bible that's very difficult to translate, as the root of this word then gives the Hebrew root is not used
Lament.
anywhere else in the Bible, in the biblical text, and therefore the meaning of this root word or name is impossible to determine with any degree of accuracy. One possible interpretation of this is the verb I don't know what that means, but the verb then the Hebrew again meaning low or prefixed by the word or prefixed by another letter meaning to be low, which I guess makes sense because
The despairing.
like that, you're low in life.
Yeah, you're losing all hope.
Well, you
Yeah.
despaired, right? I mean, that we all know what that means. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, that you're
It's-
low. You're not
and
high,
then
I'll tell you that much.
and then we
I
know
think
Noah
it's
because this is
interesting, the
Noah's.
definition here. Lamech was named Lamech, a root of still a root still evident today in our English word lament or lamentation. Lamech suggests despairing. His name is also linked to Lamech in Cain's line, who inadvertently killed his son Tubal Cain in a hunting incident.
Whoa! How do they know that? That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know where that last part comes from, but
I mean, and Noah. I think we all. I mean, it says it right here in Scripture. It's not necessarily giving us. If you look it up, Noah in English means rest or comfort. But if even here in verse 29, it says that this one will comfort us from our work.
I found one thing that says Noah comes from the Hebrew word nosh, which means rest or repose. It also comes from the Babylonian word means nukuk, which means rest or repose. So in the biblical name for the Old Testament, yeah. So I guess
that's pretty straightforward.
in Babylonian and Hebrew it means the same thing.
I mean,
Which- and
these check out then.
And it's funny because like I don't know about you guys, but for the most part, I don't believe in coincidences.
Oh, 100%.
Because
Yeah.
coincidences
Not in the
like,
Bible.
No.
Okay.
Well,
Also,
just even in
too,
real life, but like
if
when it comes to the Bible, though, like there's some of these things that mean whatever it means in English, like itself, when you do
dude,
the like Latin and root translations and Greek and stuff
right.
of our words, and that's like, there's no way that it doesn't mean that. Or at least in my head, it goes like, there's no way it doesn't mean that when like even in our own language, through the thousands of years of cultivation, and then the fact that English is a cultivation of 5 different languages in a mosh posh.
Including Hebrew, by the way.
Including Hebrew, that all of a sudden this also means the same thing. No,
Right.
no, that's not.
Okay, here's another thing that's really interesting. So, chapter 4, verse 25, this goes along with Seth, right? Seth, it literally says in 25, Adam was intimate with his wife again. She gave birth to a son. She named him Seth.
Yeah,
For God has appointed me another seed in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. It literally uses
yeah. It put it
the word
right then and there in
appointed.
front of our face.
Right.
And then Enosh is next, right? For Enosh, it says, to Seth also was born a son. He named him Enosh. Then people began to call on Adonai's name, which for that it's mortal. So I
And it makes sense
maybe because
like
they
maybe
realize the realization that they're mortal and they
they're
need
frail.
God,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
maybe. That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting
And then
point.
Kenan, they bring the sorrow because they realize that they are a land without God. Let's see, what does it talk about? Kenan lives under the father Michal. The doesn't say much of Kenan.
No, it doesn't.
But I'm actually going to do a little bit of digging, see what I can find here.
this is beautiful.
Let's see what a little bit. Okay, so according to Kenan was the son of Enosh and grandson of Set, born when Enosh was 9 years old. Kenan fathered Mahel and 7 years old. Other sons and daughters of Kenan before he died. Doesn't really say.
Well, I mean, so what I'll say is like, yes, there's intersections within the scripture to kind of hint towards some of those things, but I don't think that God will like. I don't necessarily think, nor do I think that he has to,
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah.
paint that bright of a picture, right? It'd almost be like
Well-
to nail on the head, and would make me think. That would make me more suspicious of it. The fact that it's like the only way to really discern that message for us is to look at the intersection between the names and what their meanings mean in English today, and the fact that it comes out with such a perfect sentence, more or less, right?
That speaks
Perfect
about somebody
sentence in the
that
sense that
lived.
I can read it and understand what it's trying to say. Is
Yeah.
To say that would be a coincidence is you'd
No,
have a better chance of convincing me that the sky is purple and I shit out rainbows. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen. You know, it's just not gonna happen, man. So
No,
I mean,
I
man
definitely
appointed
agree.
mortal, sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching, his death shall bring the despairing rest or comfort.
Yeah, sounds like Jesus, or at least
His
somebody
death
talking.
shall bring the low rest or comfort. Hello, everybody. So that for me was one of the most profound insights I've ever been able to glean while reading the Bible. To be quite frank, I don't think that it would be possible without the collaboration, and I don't think that it would be possible without this community. So, if you enjoyed that, or if you maybe, found some issues with it, comment below, let me know your thoughts. Either way, if you would like to take part in conversations like this, or, anything to do with the community at all, even if it's just listen in, make sure to get into the Discord and take part. We do these readings every week on Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, if you have any questions, make sure to drop a comment, or, make sure to join the Discord. I look forward to learning together, and thank you for taking the time to watch the video.